lets you do a lot of really cool stuff with AI. You might have seen Sabrina's project that we shared on the YouTube channel a couple of days ago. And then Storyline seems to be investing in making JavaScript developers' lives easier too. They just released this new JavaScript API. So the industry is headed this direction. The people who can use these skills are going to be in pretty good shape, I'd say, for the foreseeable future. So y'all are in the right place. I do want to let you know there will be times where it might feel a bit overwhelming. It still feels like that for me, and I've been doing JavaScript on and off for 10 years. That's just part of the process with this stuff. So if you feel overwhelmed, that's okay. You're doing it right. Okay. Another question for you. Did you watch the intro to JavaScript video that I shared on my YouTube channel last week? If you did, I'm sorry it was so long. And watch might be an understatement. It's quite an interactive video, so hopefully you had some time to do the challenges. But okay, good. I didn't expect most people to have watched it because it is 2 hours long, but those of you who did, you'll be able to follow along much more easily, and those of you who did not, this replay will be available, so if you really do want to follow along, it might be good to watch that one first and then come back to this one. But yeah, okay. What's the number one reason you want to learn JavaScript? That's another question I have for y'all. So a quarter of us watched the intro video. I'm going to be leaning on y'all to help out the people who have not watched it in the chat. Oh, wow. So the overwhelming reason we want to learn this is to design some more powerful e-learning. So make it more engaging and effective. JavaScript is cool for that, especially if you've been working in Storyline for years, like I know some of us have. It can start feeling a little stale after a while, but JavaScript kind of takes all of Storyline's limitations and just like deletes them and lets you kind of do whatever you want in Storyline. Anything that you'd be able to do on the web is possible within Storyline when you can use some of these custom coding skills. So opens up some really cool possibilities. All right. Okay, here we go. So I've spent the past several days working on this for you all. Here are some of the features, and I'm going to have y'all vote. So the first thing we could do is try out some email validation. So notice if I put in like a fake email address or just like an email address that isn't in the proper format, it says, please enter a valid one, and it doesn't let us begin. Still invalid, but if I put in the .com, there we go, we're allowed to continue. So we're going to call that like email form validation. That's one of our options. It's really helpful when you're working with XAPI and stuff like that. This one, pretty cool. You get to choose your theme, so you can set a full screen background image. So we'll call this the full screen background image selector. This one is a calculator. So we say how many hours per day we can work on this program, and then we're going to use some JavaScript code to generate an estimated completion date based on those hours per day. So we'll say 2 hours per day, and I'll press continue. The completion date will be on the next slide, but here is one of these multi-line text boxes. As you guys might know, if you start texting and then you want to like submit it, if you just press the enter key, usually it will just do a line break like that, and it can be not the best learner experience. But instead, if you just press enter in this one, it changes the focus, and we can click the submit button. So if we press shift enter, it lets you do line breaks just like it would in a normal web experience. So that's a really simple one line of JavaScript. And then here's that estimated completion date based on that 2 hours per day for a 100-hour program. So yeah, and then also we have Storyline's new JavaScript API. So they just released this yesterday, like, you know, as I just finished wrapping up that file for us to build together. Oh, and speaking of which, I'm going to share the Storyline file. So this is the Storyline file. I'm about to share this with you all. But this is another option. We could dive into this. I do want to make sure we dive into this file because I'm going to show you some really important patterns around how to work with JavaScript in Storyline. So we don't want to miss that. But based on how much y'all want to see this, we can make more or less time for it. I admittedly haven't played around with any of these new features yet because, again, it literally just came out. But yeah, if we can do this for the last 30 minutes, we could devote more or less time to it depending on what y'all want to see. So this is in the options as well that we're going to vote on. So I'm going to share the poll now, and let's see what we're going to build. Okay, what would you like to focus on? Oh, I didn't mention that one option. That option there that says saving user info to local storage. That way, like whenever we select the background we want, whenever we enter our name and email, we can make it so that whenever we come back to the course, that information is already saved and pre-populated. So even if the user picks like to restart the course, it will be saved. Even if they went to a different course, so say we had a different storyline course on the same domain, we could still have their name, their email address, their preferred theme. We could bring in all of that information. It gets saved to the browser, not to the storyline course. So I could show y'all how to do that too if you're interested. Looks like a lot of votes for Storyline's new JavaScript API, so we'll definitely make some time for that. And then the full screen background selector and saving user info to local storage, those seem like the winners. So does that sound good for y'all? We'll prioritize those. I'll show you, I'll give you the code for the other pieces if you're interested in that, but we'll do background selector. Then I'll show you how to save that background choice to local storage so that whenever the user opens up your course, it's already pre-populated. And then we'll take a look at Storyline's new JavaScript API. That will be kind of on the fly, and we'll see if we want to build something together based off of what we find in the new documentation. Does that sound good to y'all? At the end, it might be a little messy because we're figuring it out together live, but you'll get to see a little bit into my workflow and how I use Claude and all of that good stuff. All right, looks like we got a lot of thumbs up in the chat, so let's do that. I'm going to share with you the Storyline file right now. So there we go. You can click download on that. Hopefully it will work for you. Let me know if it doesn't. If it doesn't, we have a Google Drive link that we can share. So I shared that as a handout. And then I suppose I could share the Google Drive link also in case anyone needs that. So let's get that Storyline file opened up. You can also open up Visual Studio Code if you'd like, if you want to write some code. And no worries, this replay will be available, so you could just feel free to follow along without, without actually creating it. Okay, so let's dive in. We have no time to waste here. Okay, so I'm going to hop over here. I want to explain some conceptual stuff. So when it comes to working with Storyline and like writing code, like I want to set the vision for y'all. When you're comfortable with JavaScript, you're not just gonna like open up a code editor and start typing away like you're writing like an English essay. You're gonna need to be doing some research as you go. The code itself isn't the important part that you need to remember. You need to remember like the syntax. You need to kind of understand conceptually what's going on with the code and how it's modifying things on your computer. If you understand that, the rest of it is going to be a lot easier. So does anyone know the different ways that we can execute code in JavaScript? And you know what? I'm going to actually move things around a little bit so that I can see what y'all are saying on my other monitor here. Okay, let's dive back in. Okay, triggers. Yes, we can use an execute JavaScript trigger. The downside with this, we're going to talk a little bit about scoping, okay? So if I create a new trigger here, I can do execute JavaScript, and then I can type in the JavaScript I want to execute in this little JavaScript editor here, right? And then I can click when I want that to happen. So we're going to have some kind of execute JavaScript trigger. So whenever the user clicks on this image, we're going to want to execute some JavaScript so that it changes the background, right? So let me show you what else I have open here. I also have open Claude. So if y'all are going to be working with JavaScript, I suggest, like I said in the video, always have open a Claude window. So this is the best like AI large language model for coding right now. I just wrote a prompt. You're a JavaScript coach. You're going to help us out here. You can read that if you want, but it's nice having a prompt to kind of kick things off. And then what else do we have? We also have these 3 background images. So these are URLs. Let's just start with Claude. So can you generate some code that will change the full screen background of my Storyline course? Ensure that the background is centered and full screen. I have the URLs for the backgrounds. So this is what I do a lot. Like I just ask AI for the code I need. Let's see, it's going to generate some of that code for us. It gives us a whole function. This is going to look a little bit confusing. And it uses some CSS. I want to keep things simpler. So I'm going to show you a more basic way to do it. This will probably work, but let's just write a line of code ourselves. So I'm going to hop over here to Visual Studio Code. This is a code editor for those of y'all who don't know. It makes things a lot easier. It color codes them. I'm going to create a new file in this JavaScript 101 folder that I made, and I'm going to call it scripts.js. So I like working in a code editor versus writing the code in Storyline. Again, it color codes things, it catches errors for you, and then I will just generally copy and paste stuff over. So I think to change the background, we would do something like document.style.background. Let me see. I actually have some reference code over here that I was like working on over the course of the week. I'm going to copy this code. Okay, so this takes, again, this is like some CSS stuff, but we can access it with JavaScript. It's okay if you don't know exactly what's going on here, but we're going to take the document, we're going to take the body, we're going to change the background image, and we're going to set it equal to a URL. So this is the general format that changes the full screen background of your browser window, essentially. So if I hop back over here to Storyline, I'm going to open back up this JavaScript trigger. I'm going to paste that in, and now we can put a URL between these two parentheses. So I'm going to go over here. Notice I have these pulled up. Here's how I got them. I know some people might be curious about that. I just went to Free Pick. I found a background I wanted. I right-clicked it, and I copied the image address. So then you can see if we like paste the image address, it brings us here. So that's how I got these. But I'm going to copy the URL of this one. I'm going to hop over here in Storyline, and I'm going to paste in the URL. Oh, I'm going to paste it in between quotes because we need to pass in that URL as a string. So we're not going to cover data types here. We did that in the intro video, but strings are enclosed by quotes. And I'm just going to click on OK, and let's preview this. Let's see if it works. It does not appear to work. Why is that? Also, what I'll note too that this hasn't been here before. So, I know what this is gonna do. This is the freshly updated version of Storyline here. Oh, nice. Okay. So they made some quality of life improvements. So this is gonna be confusing to some of you who are brand new, but with Storyline's new JavaScript API, we can modify all of these different properties of objects on your screen. So we can change the position of it. We can change the state of it with pure code. And the way to do that is you have to access it with this object ID. So Storyline, instead of making you go in there and right click it and copy the ID yourself, they made it so that you can just use this quick reference toggle here. So if we want to access this forest background image, we click on that, we click add, and now we can access that with this variable reference. So if we, in the code, we wanted to change something, we could just reference it like that. So I'm sure we'll have some more time to dive into that a little bit later. Let's see, why didn't this work here? Again, this is a brand new version of Storyline. So, oh, there we go. Okay, it works. Maybe it was just taking a little bit of time to load. So notice when you change the full screen background, like the slide itself is still white and overlays it. So the way we can fix that is by actually changing the transparency of the slide background to 100%. So I'm going to right click on it. I'm going to do format background, and then I'm going to change the transparency all the way up to 100%. And then we can click apply to all, and it will apply that to every single slide in our project. So we'll do apply to all, then I'll do close. And now if we preview it, it should look a lot better. There we go. Also, this is kind of weird. Why does it have like that free pick? a watermark on it. It didn't have the watermark on it in when I was doing it last night. So that's kind of weird. What you could do though is you could always download these and upload them to your own server, like Amazon S3, for example, and you'd be able to see it. Maybe I should copy this image address. Maybe that would be different. Just by right-clicking on the image itself. I think it'll be the same exact address we're at, but I don't like seeing that watermark there. It's not very attractive. I'm going to check in with y'all in a second. I haven't been watching the chat, but yeah, it's the same thing. So we're going to have a watermark for now. How are we doing, right? We're just looking at a cool way to change this. To change the full screen background image. That's not super complex. It's just one of the cool things we can do with JavaScript. It makes it a bit more immersive, but we're going to dive a bit deeper into a way to reuse our code really well. Okay, let's check it out. Okay. So you notice I had all of these other pieces of code as well. Like these modify CSS properties. So it makes the image cover the whole screen. It centers the image. It makes it so it's not repeating. It sets it to 100% of the viewport height, which is 100% of the visible screen you can see. So I want to keep all of these other properties just for better styling. So that's what these ones are doing. You can see this single line of code brought in the background, but these other ones are going to style it a little bit better. So I'm going to paste those in. I'm going to preview. And this code is generated by AI. I have to massage it a little bit more, but you can see now, we can see a lot more of the screen. It's not just like that one little corner because, we stretched it and all of that. So that's where the CSS comes into play. But now if we want to do that for these other ones, what we could do is we could just copy this and paste it, right? We could copy it, we could paste it to this one, we could change the URL. That's one way to do it. But then our code doesn't look very cute, right? It's not very attractive. Like we have all of this random code in here. And does anyone know what we want to use in JavaScript to not have to rewrite our code over and over? Oh, and Dina's asking a good question too. Dina, you said you're confused how to get JavaScript to work. So JavaScript is built into every single web browser that you're going to use. So yeah, good job backing me up a little bit. JavaScript is a language of the web. It's what makes websites interactive. So if you open up your project in a browser, JavaScript is enabled by default. So the JavaScript you write is going to work as long as it's written well. And then also Storyline had a nice update, I think last year, where you could actually preview JavaScript in Storyline's preview option. So previously, if you ever wanted to see if your JavaScript was working, you would have to publish your project and open it in a browser. It was terrible. So thankfully, again, Storyline's investing a lot in these JavaScript quality of life updates. And now the JavaScript works in the Storyline preview. So yeah, the people who talked about functions, yes, exactly. We want to write a function to reuse our code. So a way we could write a function, there are a couple of ways we could do it, but we would generally create it with a variable. So we would say const, because that's a keyword to create a variable that doesn't change. We would name our function, so we can name it change background. And then we can set it equal to a function. Okay. Whenever we define a function, there are going to be these opening and closing parentheses. And inside of those parentheses, does anyone know what we would put? What do we put between a function's parentheses? Code. Parameters. Yes, great. So we can pass something into a function, if we're going to need to call the function multiple times with changing data, in this case, what would be changing when we click on the different images? URLs, exactly. So whenever we want to call these different images, we would use a different URL. And then to define it, we would do these opening and closing curly brackets. So inside of this is going to be the code that we execute. So we would execute all of this code right here. So I'm going to cut that and then paste it in. And again, if this is confusing to some of y'all, the intro to JavaScript video is a really good place to start, but just soak up what you can here. And now you notice, where we're setting the URL, we have this hard-coded URL, which we don't want. So I'm going to take this and just delete this whole URL. Because we want to be able to pass in these URLs dynamically based on the image that we're clicking. So this is the proper format right here. We need the URL to go there. So we need the data that we're going to pass into the function needs to be dynamically entered right here. Does anyone know how to do that? I like using this, what is it called? String template approach, template string, something like that. You surround your string in backticks. So I'm using the key right beneath my escape key on my keyboard to start and end this string here. And then whenever you want to insert a variable or the value of a variable, which in this case will be URL, we're going to do a $sign, open some curly brackets, type in the name of the variable we want to get the value of, and then close some curly brackets. So again, the syntax can be pretty confusing. You'll get used to this stuff as you work with it more. But what this is going to do is then we can call a function like this. So I can say change background. I can enter the URL I want surrounded by some quotes because it needs to be a string. So I'm going to hop over here and grab this URL again. I'm going to enter that. I'm going to close the string with some closing quotation marks, and then I'm going to close my parentheses. So that's how you actually call a function. This right here is just defining it. We're saying, hey, set this variable equal to this function that we'll be able to call at a later date, and then we want to call the function like this. So this should still work because we're calling the function. If I didn't have that line, it wouldn't do anything. So I'm going to press OK, and I'm going to preview this. Okay, it still works. So that's how we define a function and call it. Again, we could do a whole session on functions. If you're brand new, it's going to be a little confusing, but functions let you reuse your code with different dynamic data that you can pass in as an argument. And these are called parameters. You can have as many of these as you want, separated by commas. So we could like pass in a variety of data. Now, we're building up to something that's going to be really valuable for you all. So even if you don't understand the code, just try to understand. You're going to be able to understand the overall process that I'm going to show you here. That's going to make it way easier to work with code in the future. Okay, so we're setting up a function. Now, how do you think, say we want to use this change background function over here, right? So when I click on this one, I want to execute some JavaScript. I want to say change background. I want to put in the URL of the forest one. I'm going to paste that. I'm going to end that. I'm going to end that. Is this going to work? Any guesses? Yeah, and sorry, don't get confused by this. We're not going to deal with that until we get into the new JavaScript features. Why isn't this going to work? I forget my question. Are y'all saying it doesn't work, or you don't know why it won't work? It will not work, so you're right about that. Does anyone know why? Right? We defined the function already over here. The function's defined, so why doesn't this work? It isn't defined. It can't access the function. The function is local. Scope. Okay, yes, exactly. So whenever we create a new JavaScript function like this, anything in this window where we're editing this trigger is local to this, this variable that we're defining here is local to this window. So we can use it down here, but if we try to use it in a different trigger, we cannot access it. Okay? So we want to define our functions in a way where they can be accessed by any trigger in our entire course. Okay? Like how much nicer does this JavaScript trigger look than the other one we just looked at? This one's a lot cleaner, right? We can see exactly what we're doing. We're changing the background. We're passing in the URL that we want to change it to. Super clean, very nice. That's what we want, okay? So I'm going to take this code. I'm going to take this function that we're defining in here. I'm going to take it out of this because doing it this way is kind of useless if it's always just stuck in the, the JavaScript editor for that specific trigger. We might as well not create a function. I'm going to press OK, and I'm going to hop over here to my code editor so that we can see things a little bit more clearly. All right. So where should we go with this next? I'm going to show y'all a way to make your functions available globally. Okay? Generally, if you're building a web app, you don't want to have a lot of global stuff defined, but with Storyline, it's really useful. Because when we open up our Storyline course, We want to be able to use those triggers just by their name, and we want all of our slides to have access to it. Okay, great. Yes. So what are some ways to do this? I already see in the chat someone said a JavaScript file. So that's one way to do it. That's the traditional way that most people do it. And I'm so happy to share with you a new and better way. So how you used to have to do it is you would define your functions in a file like this. You would save it as scripts.javascript. You would publish your project. So we would have to go in here. We would publish this. We would open our folder. We would have to drag in our JavaScript file to this folder to make sure it's in the folder structure. We would have to edit our story.html file. So we'd have to open this with Visual Studio Code, and then we would have to add a new script linking to that scripts.js one. I don't even remember how to do it. What is it? Something like script source equals scripts.js. Whoops, I can't type right now. So you would have to do something like this to link to that script file, and then all of your JavaScript triggers would have access to the code you have in that scripts file over here. That is a terrible process. No one wants to do that, right? Every time you publish your project, you have to drag in all of this stuff, edit code. It's terrible. Okay, so Christiana, you're cheating. So last night we had a bootcamp workshop and there were only a few people there, and I kind of did a dry run of some of this stuff, and so Christiana knows exactly where we're going. But okay. So we don't want to do it that way. So what should I do next? The window object? Let me show you something. We'll do the window object next. So when we use these const and let keywords to define variables like we did here, and again, if that's confusing to you, watch the intro video. It'll make a lot of sense. It's really easy. That's how we define a variable so that we can use it later. Now we can also do stuff with objects. So as a quick refresher for anyone who doesn't know what an object is, we can create a JavaScript object. So I can create a new object called me, and I can set it equal to, so this is a variable. We're setting it equal to an object. We define an object with these curly brackets, and then we can give it a series of key value pairs. So name will be Devlin, age, we could put 30. This is a common example I use. So this is how we create an object, and we can keep going with commas between them, like favorite, hobby, so on and so forth. Okay, so now whenever we want to access something on that object, we can use something called dot notation. Yeah, there will be a replay available. So if I want to access this value right here, what do I write? Anyone want to give any spoilers in the chat? How do I access Devlin right here, this string? Me.name, exactly, nice and easy. Okay, so me.name, so this would return, I'm going to make a comment right here. These are comments, they just let you like leave notes in the code without actually affecting anything. Okay, so that's how we access stuff. So we're saying access this object and then get the value of the name property. So that's what's going on here. Anyone know how to add a new key to this object? Say I want to add something like favorite programming language. How would I add that? Push? No, Eva, that's for arrays. And then same thing with that bracket notation. So y'all are close. So arrays and objects are a little bit different. Const my array equals Devlin 30 reading. This would be an array. So you see the difference? Objects let you have the key and the value. Arrays just are a list of something. And so then if you want to access something in array, you would do like my array 0, and that would access Devlin. So that's not really relevant to what we're doing right now. I'm going to just keep that down there. But yeah, anyone know how to add something new to the me object? It's actually super, super easy. And I'm going to show you, okay? We do me. Yes, exactly, Sarah. So we do me, and then we just type in the name. And then set it equal to whatever we want. Okay, so what this does is this takes the me object, and then if this key isn't already on there, it adds it on. Okay, so it adds this one onto that. So then if I were to do, you know what, let's execute some of this code. I'm going to show you it in the console, okay? So I'm just going to copy this. I'm going to go over to my console. So I'm going to right-click somewhere empty on my web. I'm going to right-click somewhere empty. I'm going to click on Inspect, and then I'm going to go to the console. So this is our first time in the session where we're working with the console. This lets you can log data to the console from your JavaScript code, and you can also see if any errors come up with your JavaScript code over here in the console. So, and you can also execute JavaScript directly in the console. A few things about this, because I know this is getting into some more like developer tools, and it can be a little intimidating if you're new to this kind of stuff. This is like secure if the code that you're adding is your own. This can't affect anything on your computer outside of this specific tab that we're working in. So it's local to the tab. It can't affect anything else on your computer. It can access any of the data you might have saved associated with the domain that you're on. So that's why you might get security warnings. If you paste in some code to the console, it might say, hey, make sure you trust this code, because someone could potentially like get the cookies you have stored there and then send them off to another URL if you paste a big block of code. But other than that very specific risk, I can't really see how else executing any code in your console would be a security risk. So let's get that out of the way. It's a little intimidating, but we can just execute code here. So I'm going to paste in this code. These lines right here, this is going to create that variable, and I'm going to delete these for now. So first, we're just going to define that variable. And now let's see what this returns. So let's do me.name, and there we go. See how we get Devlin? So I could do me.age, and it returns 30. Let's now do what we were talking about earlier. Let's add in this new line right here. Okay, and so now if I do me, it returns this whole object. See, age, favorite hobby, favorite programming language. So we can expand these objects, but we can see with this line of code right here, we added on this. And I promise this is about to get really, really relevant. Just try to follow along and bear with me here. Any questions about this? Do you see how we did it? We can access data using that dot notation from an object, and we can add new key value pairs also using dot notation. Kim, it is possible to disable JavaScript in your browser, but most websites you go to would cease to function. So I would say pretty much anyone who's going to be interacting with your stuff is going to have JavaScript enabled. If you had JavaScript disabled, your storyline course wouldn't work. So yeah, the modern web is kind of built on JavaScript. Kelly, you're asking about publishing it to SCORM and uploading on an LMS. When you publish a SCORM package, it's essentially just a web package. It's the same exact thing. It's an HTML file wrapped in a SCORM wrapper, and you can only access it from a browser. So yeah, this is the same as SCORM. All of this would work in the LMS. Okay, so everyone sees how to add to an object. Any questions? Because again, this understanding is important in a second. All right, if anyone does get this and you see any questions in the chat, try to help people out, because we're going to get a little bit more advanced here. So whenever you open a new tab, you're going to get access to the window object, okay? There are certain objects that are just built into JavaScript, all right? So let's see what the window makes available to us. I'm also going to show y'all console.log. So whenever you do actually, I might not even need to do that. So I'm just going to type in window, and then it's going to return this window object for me, okay? This is available from Chrome. Any browser you have is going to have a window object. And what that does is it makes all of these different global things available. Hey, anyone recognize this? Get player? This is something that Storyline makes available to the window object. So any global variables or anything in the global scope is going to be available on this window object that's just already available to you. So you'll see some stuff that you recognize and use, like we'll probably be able to see console.log here. Oh, it's not alphabetical order. But yeah, all of this stuff is available by default. And when it is available, we can access it just by writing its name. Okay? So we can add to this window object to make things global. Okay, y'all see where I'm going with this? So just like how we added my favorite programming language to the me object that I created up here, we can add stuff to this window object to make it globally available. So I can do window dot, what should we say? What do we want to do? Window dot lesson number equals 4. And now whenever we type in less than number, we can get the value of 4. And when we do this, if we were to go in this, if in this storyline course, we use this less than number like variable, it would be equal to 4. So anyone see where we're going with this? We're going to add a function to the window object so that in storyline, we can just call it with this nice line of code right here. Okay, so that's how we can add things to make it globally available in our storyline course. So if we go over here, does anyone know how we should change this code right here based off of what we're learning? How can we make it so that instead of defining this as a variable with const, how can we add it to the window object? Window dot is a good start, but how do we know what it's named then, Elizabeth or Ibrahim? Window dot change background. Yes, exactly. So we're gonna take the window object and we're gonna add this change background. Let's call it a variable, and we're gonna set it equal to this function. Okay. So let's copy this and see if it works. Where should we execute this code though? Right, let's see. We could execute it whenever the timeline, actually, I'll ask y'all, when should we execute this code? And if y'all want me to be less interactive, let me know. I like learning that way, trying to guess and figure out the answer. Yeah, we can make it when the timeline starts on this slide. Let's try that. So as long as we add this to the window before the user actually calls the function, we'll be in good shape, right? So let's try adding this here. We're gonna add this change background function to the window object when the timeline starts on the timeline, on this slide. And so now we know as soon as we get to this slide, that will get added to the window. And you know what, let's publish this just to help people see what's happening here. Okay, we're gonna publish this, we're gonna view the project. I'm going to open the console. Oh, you know what? Let's get even better. I'm gonna show y'all how to use console.log, okay? So once we execute this JavaScript when the timeline starts, let's log something to the console. So we'll do console.log change background function loaded. So this is how we can just send a message to the console that we're gonna open whenever I can open this. So it's gonna log a message right here whenever this code executes. So I'm gonna press OK. We're gonna republish this. And we're gonna view it again. Let's open up our console so we can see if we get any fun messages from our code. I'm just gonna skip this slide for now. And look at that, change background function loaded. Let me actually refresh. I'm gonna restart. So notice right now, if I try to use change background, it's not defined, right? That function doesn't exist right now. But if I go to the next slide, now that change background function is loaded, let's open that window object and let's find it. Because we just added this here, so it should, oh, here it is. Oh, I just saw it somewhere. Oh, here it is, change background. So here's our function. I don't know how to get to the actual code of it, but it's somewhere in there. So we've added that there. So now when we, let me show you one more. So now if I do change background, it actually works, right? It returns that function. So when I click on this, do we think it's gonna work? In storyline, this is the code we're executing. Is it going to work when we click on that? Any ideas? The function's here, it's in the global scope. It's called change background, so it should work. Let's try. There we go. Look at that. Both of them work now. So we're getting there. We can actually take this a step further, and this is where our lives are gonna get even easier, okay? So when we write our code, we wanna be able to define all of these functions in here. So we might have a function to change the background. Why don't we write a function to do something else? So let's hop back over to storyline. What else are we talking about doing? Oh, I know what we could do, but I don't know if we should go there yet. What we could do is we could save the user's background choice, so then whenever they come back to the course, it preloads that background for them. So on the title screen, we already know what background that they want. we could save it. So that's one way we could do it. But let's take things one step at a time. So and let's also make this one work. How about that? So I'm going to copy this execute JavaScript trigger. I'm going to paste it over here. I'm going to open it up. And now let's get that URL of this one. So now I'm just going to replace what's between the quotes with this new URL. So now all three should work. Oh, I think it's like loading. Oh, there we go. So there we go. All three work. Now, the downside with this, and what I'm getting at is, again, we're going to write a lot of different functions. We might have a lot of different functions for our course. We don't want to have them all hidden away in these. We don't want to have them all hidden away in these different triggers that execute on different random slides, right? So can anyone think of a better place to execute this code? Like, where do we want to define all of our global functions that we want to use throughout our course? We don't want to just have it hidden on this slide. Master slide, yes. Okay, excelente. Let's get rid of this. So I'm going to close that. Actually, what I should have done, I'm going to undo that. I'm just going to copy this, okay? And what we're going to do is we're going to go up into here to view, and we're going to go to slide master. And then this is the layout that's being used by all of the slides in our course. And then we're going to paste the trigger here. Okay. So I want to ask y'all some questions about this to make sure we really understand what's going on here. So why are we executing this on the slide master? Why can't we just execute this on the first slide of the course? Yeah, Danny. So how slide masters work is anything we have on this slide will run on every single slide that's using this layout. So since every slide in our course uses this layout, every single slide will execute this code. Yes, Dina, exactly, so that it can be resumed. So if we were executing this code on the title screen of the course, then yes, the first time we open the course, it'll all load up perfectly. But let's say we get to the second slide and then we close out of the course and then we come back later and resume the course, it's going to bring us to slide 2 and we're not going to see slide 1 again. So this isn't going to get re-added. Because whenever the user refreshes the page, all of these global things that we define are going to get lost unless we re-add them. And I want to clarify, Veronica, if we were to execute this on the first slide of the course, it would work on the next slide because we're adding this to the window object. So when we're in a storyline course, so let me make sure we're clear on that. Yeah, once we make something in the global scope, it's available throughout the entire storyline course, no matter what slide, no matter what scene. If it's in the global scope, it's available in all of storyline. Now I have one more question for you. This one might be a little bit trickier. Is there any issue with this? Any problems we can see here? So this is going to be executing on every slide of our course. Is that a problem? Yeah, we don't want to have to define this function every single time a new slide loads, and this is going to potentially throw a lot of errors in our, if not throw error, it depends on what code we're going to use here, but it will either throw errors or it will use just like unnecessary processing power because again, we only need to load this once every time the user accesses the course. We don't need to load it 5 different times or 500 different times depending on how long your course is. So any ideas about how we can make sure this only runs once every time we access the course? Oh, I like that, Amanda. Maybe you have some conditions that check if the object has the element already. Yeah, exactly. That's what we can do. How are we doing on time? Okay. Yeah, we're going to take this full 90 minutes. So I hope y'all have some time to keep learning this stuff with me. But this is our code. I'm going to hop back over here just because it's nicer to work in... and I'm going to delete this stuff. It's nicer to work in Visual Studio Code. So here's what I want to do, right? The direction we're headed is we're going to have multiple different functions defined in this document. I want to make sure that we only define them if they haven't been defined before. So what I want to do is I want to use an if statement. Okay, and here's how if statements work. If true, execute. So this is the format. So we type the keyword if, we'll have some parentheses, and inside of these parentheses, we'll have some sort of expression. Okay, so the expression might be 5 is greater than 6. Whoops. Okay. So this if this is the expression, so anything between these two parentheses is going to evaluate to either true or false. Okay, so we changed topics a little bit. This is important though. We're gonna make it relevant again, but just try to follow this with these if statements. So whenever we do an if statement between these parentheses, this has to evaluate to one of two things, true or false. It can only be one or the other. Okay, so if we have it like this, 5 obviously is not greater than 6, so this code will never run. Okay, if we do 5 is less than 6, then this code will run because it will first say, okay, is this true or false? If it's true, which it is, then do whatever is between these two curly brackets. Okay, if this is false, like this, then this is never going to happen because, yeah, it just says continue on. Any questions about this? Because it's about to get more complex. All right, so with expressions like this, it's obvious, right? 5 is greater than 6, no. But now there's also, there are also things that it might not be so clear whether it's true or false. So like, you know, a variable like this. So what if, okay, so will this code execute if, sorry, name seems to be like reserved in some way. We'll do my name. So any guesses on whether or not this code will execute? It actually will. So this code will execute. So every value in JavaScript has some inherent truthiness, I think is one way to say it, or falsiness. So because my name is defined and it's equal to a value, this evaluates to true. Okay, so it's kind of intuitive. It's like, yes, this is true. This is a thing. This thing exists. Okay, so a string evaluates to true. Now we could also do this. Okay, so we're saying my name is a variable. We should actually probably say this. We're saying my name is a variable. We just haven't set it equal to anything yet. Now, how will this evaluate? Jeff, what do you think? Will this execute? This will execute as false. So we created a variable, but we didn't define it. So this variable will be considered undefined, and undefined evaluates to false. So this code will not execute. Okay, and this can be a little confusing. This was confusing me last night when I was on that bootcamp workshop trying to explain it to Christiana and the other couple people that were there. But yeah. So undefined is false. So what if I say my last name? How will this evaluate? And I'm going to show you all this in the browser. So let's say I type in my last name here. Look at that. So if we check out, so type of is a keyword to get the type of something. My last name is undefined because we never set it equal to anything, right? Here we said we're going to create a variable and not set it equal to anything, but the same thing is true if you try to access a variable that you never even defined. So this is undefined, we never defined it, so this is false, so this code will never execute. It's not defined as a string, but not set. No, it doesn't even exist. Okay, so unless we explicitly define it, it doesn't exist. Unless it's been provided by the browser, like, the window object, for example. So let's use what we learned about these if statements here and wrap this in an if statement so that it only executes if we haven't already initialized our code. Here's how I want to do it, okay? I want to say if I don't even need to say window.code initialized. I think that's redundant. I think I could just say if code initialized. So we're going to create a new variable called code initialized at some point to make this work. Whoops. We're going to end that. So again, our if statement has to be enclosed by curly brackets. And then we want to indent all of this. So I'm just going to highlight it all and press the tab key because we want to keep, we want to keep things organized so we can see where our code blocks begin and end. So we want to use indentation is important in JavaScript. All right, so any ideas on where we want to go from here? So we're checking if this code initialize variable is defined. If it is, it's currently executing this code. But obviously we don't ever define it, right? So let's make it so that as soon as this code starts executing, we change code initialize, we create code initialized on the window object so that it's globally available, and we set it equal to true. Okay, so we're saying this is equal to true. And now there's only one thing wrong, right? So how if statements work is first it checks if this is true, and if it's true, it executes all of this code. Anyone see the problem with that? We don't want to execute all of this code if it's already been initialized. We only want to execute this code when it hasn't been initialized. So here's how we could do that. Oh, what the heck? Whoops. Okay, so by default, this checks if it's true or false. We can invert the truthiness of it with a specific symbol. Yes, Ibrahim, with an exclamation point. Okay, so this inverts it. So in other words, if this is false, this exclamation point will invert it to true. And this is where I get confused myself. Hopefully y'all are following. So now, so basically what this is saying is if code initialized is false, then execute all of the code between those curly brackets. So yeah, logic stuff can be confusing if you're new to it, can be really intuitive if you've worked with it before. But this is the code that we need. So I'm going to talk through it in plain English. So what we're checking for is we're saying if code initialized is false, then execute this code. First thing we do is we create this code initialized value on the window object, and we set it equal to true. Then we execute add all the other functions we want to the window object. And then on the next slide, when we try to execute this again, the first thing it's going to check is code initialized false? It will not be because we already set it to true on the previous slide. Okay, so I'm going to copy this. I'm going to hop back over to our storyline file. This is where we were executing it. I'm going to paste this code here. And I also like loading that in the console. Adding these little console.log messages is helpful when you're developing. Where is it? Sorry, I'm like lagging or something. Okay, there we go. Any questions about that? It seems like we have some people in the chat that understand. If not, watching this back will hopefully help you get it. But this is this was like a godsend when I first figured this out. It's incredible because now the workflow, for all of y'all who are wondering, is we have this set up in our storyline file. So now all of our code will go within these two curly brackets. So, we can create other functions. And then, function, so on and so forth. So we can define all of our stuff here. Then we just copy it. Whenever we're ready, we hop over here to this specific trigger. We copy this and then we paste it in. And that is the workflow. So you don't have to edit any outputs. Whenever you load up that storyline course, no matter what slide it goes to, it's going to load up all of this good stuff. And there we have it. Whew, okay. Where do we want to go from here? I have another 35 minutes or so. I'm down to dive into this with you. This one I think is going to be a bit more complex. I don't think y'all want to see that. How about I show you this line of code right here? It's actually quite nice. Where is it? I'm just going to grab stuff from my other file because it's, again, I usually just get the code from Claude anyway. Here's that validate email function that uses a regular expression. Actually, those are confusing. I don't think y'all want to learn about that. Oh, here's this. This is nice. Okay, so I have a line of code here. This basically changes the focus of whatever you're currently focused on. So that's like an accessibility term. So if I preview this, I can tab through it with the tab key, and that's how we know what we have focus on. Now, the way storyline works, if y'all recall, like whenever you want to create a text entry, it doesn't change the value of the storyline variable until that text entry loses focus. So again, if we preview this, say I want to enter my response, then I press enter, that's what happens. It's terrible, right? What websites do you use where you press enter to submit something and it just does a line break, right? We don't want it to work like that. So all we need to do is we need to add that single line of JavaScript you just saw me paste. I'm going to create a new trigger. I'm going to execute this JavaScript. And I don't need to create a function for this because it's so simple. I'm going to execute that whenever the user presses the enter key after clicking on that text entry box. So again, this JavaScript just manually changes the focus, or it removes the focus from the current element. So that's all we need. So now when I press OK, I can preview this. And then I press enter and it changes the focus. So I wanted to show you all that just because it's such a simple line of JavaScript, and there are so many things like this that you can do with JavaScript that you just need to know, let me Google it. And once you know how to work with JavaScript, like any little tricks like that, if you can find some code for it or generate some code with it with Claude, you can do some pretty cool stuff. Local storage, let's do that. Y'all want to get back into that? And then that's the one more thing, the final thing I want to show you, just because I've used that on some client projects and it's been really helpful. And then we can get into the new API stuff and see if we want to do anything with that. Does that sound good? Let's do it. Okay. Well, yeah, let's save the image that we picked to local storage. Cool. Okay. So let's dive in here. I'm going to go to, this is the script we're using, where we're using this. We can actually use this change background function. Okay. So how do I want to do this actually? Let's just create a new function for now. We'll do a new one because we don't want to keep writing it to local storage every time the user clicks one. Let's only commit it to local storage when the user clicks the continue button. So then we know they've locked in their choice. We don't have any unnecessary code. So I'm going to create a new function. You can click on these little, let's just do it after this. So we'll do window dot save background, we'll call it. We will take a URL, right? The URL of whatever, actually, is there a better way to do this? I don't know. Let's just do it this way for now. So window.save background URL. And then there are two, okay. Y'all know how to work with storyline variables. So the typical approach is get player. Well, the typical approach, I should say, is setting a variable equal to get player. And I'm showing you this because I want to show you the parallel. And then if you want to get a storyline variable, you could do like player.getVar my variable. Okay, that's how we would get a variable, and then we could set a variable doing player.setVar, and then it's setting it with a comma, setting it equal to whatever value you want to set it equal to. Now, in Storyline's new update that just went live yesterday, they actually changed this finally for the first time to camel case. So changed to getVar. And what I mean by that is the first letter is actually lowercase. So it's to be determined on whether or not this is going to be an issue, like whether or not the previous way of doing it will work. I hope that both of them work. If not, it's going to be a little weird. Why don't we do it that way, actually? How about we work with some storyline variables to see what that functionality looks like today? Let's do that. So I'm going to go over here to storyline. I'm going to create a new variable called background URL. It's going to be a text variable because it needs to be a string. It's going to be that full URL. I'm going to click on OK. I'm going to click on OK again. And now let's make it so that whenever the user clicks on these images, it changes the variable to this value. Okay, so I'm going to do an adjust variable trigger. I'm going to set background URL equal to this string with the quotes included. whenever the user clicks on the snow background. Okay, I'm going to copy that. I'm going to paste it over here. I'm going to grab the URL for the forest image. So I'm working kind of quickly because I know this isn't like the juicy part. One more time, I'm going to copy that. I'm going to paste it here. I'm going to change the URL to this mountain image. Okay, so now whenever we do this, whenever we click on one of these images, it's going to change this background URL to the string that holds that URL. So now let's go back to our code file, and where we're creating this save background function, we don't need to, whoops, I'm defining that incorrectly. We're not going to pass it any arguments. We're not going to pass it any, we don't need any parameters, because we're going to get that value directly from storyline, because we know we already have it in a storyline variable. So let me show you how we do that. So what I could do is I could do const player equals get player. But anyone know a better way to do this? I'll show you. We can just define a global variable up here. So when window.player equals get player. And so now in any of the functions we have in this whole project, we can just say player and it will grab that value right there. So player dot get var and then background URL. Okay, that's how we can grab it. We're going to create a new variable in storyline though, and we're going to say bg URL. I like to have different JavaScript. I like to have different names for my JavaScript variables than I do for my storyline variables, just to like make things not get so confusing, especially when demoing like this. But what this line of code is doing is saying we're going to create a new variable called bg URL, and we're going to set it equal to the value of the background URL variable in storyline. Okay, that's how it should work. And how it used to work is like this. So maybe I'll try executing it like this first and just see if it works or not. And then what we want to do is we want to commit that URL to local storage so we can easily access it again in the future. Now, it's very similar to how we get and set variables in storyline. Do I know it off the top of my head? I think it's local storage.getItem and local storage.setItem. Does that look familiar to y'all? No worries if any of y'all have to hop out. The replay will be available. So it's a very similar thing. So local storage is something that's available in the browser, and it lets you save data to the browser. So this one will persist across tabs, across sessions, so you can close out of the browser, reopen it, and across different URLs as long as they're on the same domain. So again, we could save this background URL to the browser, and then if the user opens up a different course a month later, we can load in that background that they like. So that's how this is working here. So let me show you. So we're going to do local storage dot set item, and then just like with storyline, we do the name of the item we want to set, user bg URL, we'll call it, because again, I just want to use different names, and then we'll set it equal to bg URL. Okay, so this will again I say permanently, but permanently commit this URL to the user's browser until they clear their cache. So if you ever want to like clear your cache or reset your website cookies or whatever it is, that's when it will get rid of this. Okay? So once we have this, we can actually execute this code when the user clicks the continue button. So we would say execute some JavaScript, and it would be save background. And that's all the code we need here. So again, that code will grab the URL from the storyline variable, and it will commit it to local storage with that line of code right here. We want to do it when the user clicks the continue button. Anyone know what we need to do right here to make this code actually work? Because right now, that function is never going to fire. Does anyone know why? Order. Yes, exactly. So let's look over here at our trigger order. If we jump to the next slide when the user clicks the continue button, we're going to jump to the next slide, and this trigger is never going to execute. So we need to bump that trigger up to make sure that we're executing that JavaScript before we get to the next slide and lose anything else going on. Local storage, yeah, think of it as an object. Exactly, Amanda. It is an object because we're accessing it with this dot notation. So this is, again, built into your browser. It lets you add to it. So now we're saving that to local storage. How can we actually check if we have that in local storage and then update the background if we do? Here's how we can do it. We can use another if statement. So let's go up here to the beginning of our code. Let's say if, let's do if, so we're setting, okay, if local storage dot get item user bg URL, we're going to execute some code. So again, we're going to try to get the data of user bg URL, right? Because it's right here we set it. So if it exists, we want to do change background. How else what's a better way to do this? Because we're going to want to use this function, change background, but I want to like keep our code nice and clean. Let's just do it this way first though. Local storage.get item user bg URL. We could first like run a check for this and then create a variable equal to this. I don't know if that's going to be necessary right here, but right now, again, this this should be equal to that URL if it exists. So if it exists, we're going to change the background and set it and pass in the URL that we get from local storage to this function that we define right here. I'm pretty sure this should work too, because I'm pretty sure with JavaScript, it reads all of the code first and then tries executing the functions. I don't know how that will work in an if statement. Let's just try and see what happens. I think it'll work. Let's see. It might not. It might not. Okay, let's close this. Let's preview it. Okay, we're going to begin. I'm going to choose the forest theme. I'm going to continue. And now actually, this will be better to test in the browser. Okay, begin, we'll click the forest theme, we'll continue, and now let's say we go to like a different site. Let's say we go back, let's restart. It did not work. I can't say I'm super surprised there. Code initialize is not defined. Let's do, let's see if it committed to local storage. So I'm going to do local storage.get item and then background URL. Or no, what did I call it? I called it something weird, didn't I? User bg URL. It does not exist. Okay. Let's take it one step at a time here. If y'all are still interested in this, I can move on if you'd like. Oh, nice shout out from Joe too. So Joe is talking about we can see local storage with the application tab in the browser. So that's something to dive into. You could see what you have in local storage. Wait, did I click continue? Oh yeah, I did click continue. I'm gonna log this. So we'll do console.log background saved to. Oh, you know what? It probably didn't work because we're using the capital G. That stinks. Like, that is really unfortunate if this is the case, because now all of the code that people have written before to work with JavaScript and Storyline and all of those tutorials out there, that's going to get a lot of people confused. So I'm going to change it to a lowercase g and let's see if that caused the issue. That's really unfortunate if they deprecated that. So in one way, I kind of hope that's not the issue, but it might be. Let's see. Moment of truth if it works now. Let's see. Something seems wrong with my code here. Background. Save background is not defined. Code initialized is not defined. What's going on here? Do I need the window dot here? Why isn't this initializing? Window dot code initialize equals true. I don't see why I would need that. Let's try. Sorry, y'all. This is a part of the process. I tried to do most of this week, most of the troubleshooting, so that you didn't so that we could cover more ground. Okay, this looks good. Let's see. Change background is not defined. Okay, so, and then I do need to make sure that we're checking this after defining it, it looks like. So I'm going to cut that from here. I'm going to paste it after we define the save, or yeah, I'll just paste it down here. And I do want to try changing this back and seeing if it works. Because I had a different issue in my code, we did need that window.code initialize check, it seems like. So let's see. Moment of truth. Does the capital G work? I really hope so. Okay. I mean, it seems to have worked. Let's do something else. Player dot set var. What did I call it in storyline? Background URL. Okay, good news. The old approach does work in storyline. So I just wrote some code in the console to change this storyline variable. So now let's do it with player.getVar. Okay, good. Phew. Okay, so all of the old JavaScript tutorials will work. So the capital G and the lowercase g both work. Let's see if this code actually works. So I'm going to restart. Hey, look at that too. The local storage worked also. So now if we go to different sites and come back here, it saves the background we selected. We're going to restart the course. So even though we restarted the course, you know, the code works. So it checks the local storage to see if that background URL was committed. If it is, it changes the background equal to the value of that data from local storage. Cool. All right, guys. Thanks for doing this with me. And we got into some troubleshooting at the end, and we're not done yet. I'm still down to look at those, these updates from JavaScript and see how far we can get in 15 minutes. But yeah, any questions about this? This is how you can save stuff to local storage. It's the best pattern I found by far for working with code in Storyline, right? We can just copy this and then paste it on over into here, and it's beautiful. It's amazing. There's still, of course, going to be some troubleshooting, but yeah, adding stuff to that window object makes it nice and easy for then using the functions in Storyline, so we can have nice, clean code like this in our actual functions we're using. Ibrahim, can we store images somewhere in Storyline library and link them at any time? You could link to them with direct URLs, but the downside of that is you need to then put them into your output folder every time you want to access them, like every time you publish. When timeline starts, at the background image also loaded without choosing. Yeah, the background image is done with the JavaScript. That's why we don't even need a trigger or anything. This is loading every time the every time the code initializes, and we're changing the background with this line of code right here, as long as we have that background URL in local storage. So that's why we don't need a new trigger when the timeline starts. This starts on the timeline on the first slide that the user accesses whenever they load up the course. because we have all this being loaded on the slide master. Okay, let's check out this new JavaScript API if y'all still have some brain power left. Let's see. So that's another one of their additions. Okay, so here's this advanced JavaScript API. So application programming interface that make it easier to work with stuff. So we saw here, we can access the object's ID in some different ways. So if I right click this, here's the object ID. And then we can make changes to it with JavaScript. So why don't we create a new trigger. Let's execute this JavaScript when the timeline reaches 1 second. So we'll be able to see what our code does 1 second after the timeline starts. Let's see what we want to play around with here. So we can get the object's ID. Okay, nice. Yeah, it shows us this other approach that we saw that's new here. We can really quickly and easily get an object ID by just like doing this and clicking add. It creates the variable for us and sets it equal to it gives us a reference to this object. Now, why might we want a reference to that object? Let's find out. We can define the object properties ourselves. So using dot notation. So y'all are familiar with this now. So this is essentially an object now that we can change by accessing these different values. So let's try changing the position. We can do it like this. Move the object all the way to the left of the screen. So let's do forest background.x equals 0. And let's see what happens. And if you're wondering about position, like watch this. If we add a shape. So, what the heck? Add shape. Okay, so see this? So now if we go up to format, this is the position it's talking about. See, X is at 0 when it's all the way over here. X is at 447 when we move it around halfway through. And you can get an idea for what the position is like by going to the design tab and slide size. So the full width of ours is 960 pixels. The full height is 540. So if we want to go around half, we know that somewhere around 480 pixels will be around half of the width of the screen. So there's some math you need to do. You know, we're not going to get too into that, but let's see if this works. So now it should jump over. There we go. It moves all the way to the left edge of our slide. ID for backgrounds. You can access the background with pure, well, let's explore a little bit more and then I'll take some questions at the end. So yeah, so we can change all of this stuff. Same thing with opacity, depth order, right? I mean, do you all want to see any of the, state. That's really cool. We can change state now with JavaScript, which I've definitely wanted to be able to do in the past. So let's make a new state for this here. We could change it to the selected state. Let's just do it for, just for demo purposes. Let's open up this line of JavaScript. That's not what we want. This JavaScript here. Let's do forest background.state equals, I'm guessing it would need to be a string. Yeah, I don't know what else it would be. So let's see if that works. It did not. What did I do wrong? Set by name. They don't give an example of state. Any guesses on why this may not have worked? Let's try making a custom state. Maybe it has something to do with that. Test. And we will change it so that it has this big black border just for testing purposes. Okay, still not working. I must be doing something wrong in the code. Oh, duh, I didn't actually change it. I didn't actually change the JavaScript. Okay, there we go. So it seems like it's having some issues with storylines built-in states. You know, I always avoid storylines built-in states. I'm like, maybe it got better, let me do a button set. I regret it. I regret it immensely. Never use built-in states. It doesn't even work with the JavaScript. Is it possible to animate? Yeah, you can animate, so it gets cooler. So let's scroll down. So we can change all of that with JavaScript, except for size. That's unfortunate. Okay. We can't change size. We can only read the size, and then we can change the scale. I guess that kind of makes sense, but not ideal. Okay, they should give us examples. Okay, so let's get into mouse cursor. So we can check the cursor location we can show or hide the cursor also on the screen. Now, I was thinking of a cool thing that's possible now. Y'all know, having to direct our users to stuff on the slide, right? So we want to point people to like click on the continue button. Well, now what we could do, I'm pretty sure, is turn the cursor into an arrow that's pointing at the continue button no matter where the cursor is. So it's like, we'll have your cursor guide you to where you need to go. So that's something we could do. I don't know if that's interesting to anyone, but we could literally make the cursor orient around to like wherever it needs to be pointing at. It's probably gimmicky, but it's something that would be more easily possible now. We could, wait, can we change? Okay, we can use this function. So it's going to return the slide width and slide height. I don't think it's going to actually let us change that. So let me show you something else too that's pretty cool. I showed you how to access the console in the browser. You can also access the console from within Storyline. So that again wasn't possible before. It's nice now. The thing that I don't get about this though is we can't use get player or any of the set var things. Like this doesn't actually work for some reason in their built-in console. So Storyline developers, please, let us adjust variables from the console. I would have been able to demo everything in here if they made that the case. Amanda, best practices of using JavaScript versus built-in storyline functionality. Use built-in storyline functionality when it can get the job done if it's not going to save you any time, right? We want to make it easier for other developers to work on the project and stuff. I would say only use JavaScript when you need to, or if it's going to save you a significant amount of time by letting you write like a loop or something instead of writing 100 triggers. So if you can do it in two storyline triggers or one JavaScript trigger, do storyline to make it easier for other developers. If it's going to take 10 to 20 plus triggers to do what you could do in a couple lines of JavaScript, you might want to go with JavaScript. I'd say that's a pretty good differentiator there. Okay. Oh yeah, I wanted to try that out. Let's try slide width. Let's see if it gives it to us. It might be one of those things where it's just not working in Storyline's console. I'm not going to mess around with it too much. I don't see how that would be super helpful anyway, unless you're trying to put stuff around the Storyline slide, kind of like we did with the background. Yeah, here's where it talks about that variable naming update. So this is cool. So we can use this update function or method, we could call it, to continuously run some code at 50 frames per second. So this is obviously geared more towards like higher quality animation. Let's see what their example code does. Move the object down if its Y is less than the height of the slide. Okay, so it moves it all the way down to the bottom of the slide at 60 frames per second. Why don't we try this? Y'all want to try this? Let's see what it does. Where are we? Okay, let's do... I keep wanting to open that one. Okay, so we are going to grab this object ID and paste it in here. And let's get rid of this. Let's move this to the top of the slide and let's see what happens. I'm guessing it's going to very quickly go on a motion path to the bottom of the slide. Okay. Nothing happens. What's going on? It's less than the height. This is the code from their sample, so I'm not entirely sure why it's not working here. Strange. Very strange. I'm not sure how that would be valuable yet, other than if you're doing some more advanced animation work. Rotate an object based on a variable. But this variable would need to be equal to a degree. So why would you have a degree saved in a storyline variable? Oh, I guess so you can easily modify it in storyline. That makes sense, I guess. I think they had some cool examples too. An add to timeline function.
Let's see. So from what I could tell, I read through this last night, I read through it again, most of it this morning. This is really suited at people who are doing advanced animation work. That's what this is most helpful for, I'd say. So if any of y'all are doing that or interested in that, GSAP I know is another really popular library for doing some really clean animations. I personally haven't dove too deep with GSAP, so I would be curious to hear from someone who has spent more time with that if this is actually making their lives easier, or if like you're still going to use GSAP and not use any of this. Anyone here do that? Good for game developing. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's called GSAP, right? Yeah. So you can do really cool stuff like this. Like imagine stuff like this in a storyline course. So this just uses code to create really beautiful animation. So like I said, I haven't gotten too deep into that. Where was my... Here we are. And then they have sample interactions we can test out. I think someone said... Nicole says there's a storyline file linked at the bottom of the page. That's pretty cool. So yeah, nothing groundbreaking that I found in here. I was really worried that the old variable name or the old like get var and set var would be deprecated. I'm glad to see that it's not. Yeah. Any other questions? Y'all have a good time? Oh, parallax motion. This one would probably be pretty cool too. So if anyone does dive into this, feel free to tag me. Again, it looks a little more advanced because it deals with the what do you call it? It deals with like animation, and that can be confusing if you haven't worked with that before. But yeah, hopefully y'all got that pattern down. That's gonna make future tutorials and stuff a whole lot easier if you see how we're using like the window object to create this global stuff. No worries. Thanks for hanging out with me for a full hour and a half. I'll hang out here for a minute if any of y'all have questions, but other than that, I'll shut it down. Oh, also, I think I was supposed to let y'all know that we're in the middle of doing our last bootcamp launch for a while. So I go live like this every week for bootcamp AI and JavaScript workshops. We got people building some really cool JavaScript powered projects. So if you want my help with that and want to work together in a smaller setting, yeah, we've got this bootcamp cohort going live. And I think applications are open until the end of the month, if I'm not mistaken. And next Thursday at the same time, we're doing a tour. So we'll go behind the scenes. You'll hear from people who have done the program, who are in the middle of it. You'll meet the people you'll be working with in addition to myself. Yeah, so if any of y'all are into the technical stuff or making e-learning that really stands out and featuring it on your portfolio site, this cohort will be the one to join. But we of course have more free stuff coming too, so happy to help. Any other questions? Evelyn, I use a platform called Demio to bring this live. And if y'all make anything cool with JavaScript, feel free to tag me. If you want to make any of this stuff work in the file that I shared, yeah, feel free to tag me on LinkedIn. I'd love to see what y'all are up to. Share it in the community space. But again, thanks for hanging out with me to the end, and I will see y'all soon. Talk to y'all later.